You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 21, Into the Breach, Part 1.
Welcome back into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I am Charlene Schmidt.
And I'm Marina Kravchuk. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss each and every episode of this animated series, discover what makes each of them special, and see if there are any morals, meanings, or messages that we have learned.
This week, we are back at last, kicking off Season 2 with Into the Breach Part 1. Please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth podcast, so if for whatever reason you haven't seen Into the Breach Part 1, you may want to put us on pause. We'll wait. Are we back? Okay. And then watch that episode, come back to us, and then hear us talk all about it. Now, with the whole season dropping, we understand you might be feeling a little busy. Come to us anytime. We'll be here. We're good.
Mission Log Prodigy is produced for YouTube and as a regular podcast, so please be sure to engage the like and share buttons and subscribe to us here on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel. Please make sure to listen on podcast.roddenberry.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or whenever you get podcasts. You can also follow Mission Log Prodigy on Twitter at ML_Prodigy to keep up with all our latest news and updates.
Now, before we jump into the recap, this is why our podcast is so unique. We want to hear from all of you, the younger Prodigy fans out there who would like to share their thoughts on the show. We did this in Season 1. We can't wait to do it all over again. And we hope you all come back. Please send us that 1 to 2 minute voice message at missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com. And here's the thing about this episode that we're doing a little different. This is a two-parter. And we're going to feature all of your voicemails at the end of our next show, so you have time, because we're releasing this so quickly after the release of the season, covering both parts of Into the Breach. And since it's been a little while, here's a reminder of what to put in your message. What is your first name and age? Did you like the episode? What was your favorite part? And what did you learn?
We look forward to hearing your comments, which will be featured, as Charlene said, at the end of the next show. And just to start things off today, here are our answers to those very same questions. So, Char, did you like the episode?
Nah. No, we waited all this time for this? Oh, no. Are you kidding? Of course, I loved it. At long last, we're finally catching up with our crew, and we are embarking on an adventure aboard Voyager-A with Admiral Janeway in command. Like, as a longtime Voyager fan, all of this put together, it feels like coming home again in a new house, and nevertheless, that's how it feels.
Oh, I so agree. I mean, the theme started playing, and I could just feel warm inside. It's like a long-awaited reunion. Having more new track is always exhilarating. I mean, we've been so blessed in the last so many years, but now it's Prodigy. It's specifically Prodigy, and it's here, and we're going on a new adventure. So our ragtag crew is back, and Admiral Janeway and her gang, both new and old, is also back. So this is super, super exciting. I'm very happy.
Yeah, what's not to love?
Now, did you have a favorite part?
Yeah, I think it's got to be the tour of Voyager-A. Like, it has just enough in common with classic Voyager to feel like that warm hug when we see it, but it also has all these cool new features. And I am super stoked, of course, about Cetacean Ops, because, hello, how cool is that? And our whale has to be a descendant of George and Gracie, right?
I know. Spitting image of Gracie, I thought.
I thought so too.
Now, I admit I didn't have like a specific favorite part. I really enjoyed the entire episode because it was a tremendously executed introduction. Like you look at it from beginning to the end, it gives us precisely the context of where and when we are in terms of what's happening with each of the characters. We find out about the new ship, about the new mission. We kind of get an inkling of what's going on with the Federation. But yeah, the Cetacean Ops just cracked me up as a concept. Like I keep imagining, I mean, like, you have this super technological pool somewhere on board a ship with a whale controlling, Starfleet equipment. It's hysterical. It's hysterical fun.
Love it. Love it so much.
All
Well,
right.
was there anything that you learned?
Well, I think a huge part of it was that this concept that when you're becoming a part of the whole, it's uncomfortable. It can be disheartening because you have to find your place. But no man is an island. Our crew now has to learn they're not by themselves out there somewhere on that little ship. They're now part of a bigger whole. So they have to learn how to behave in the grander scheme of things, in the greater framework of both Starfleet and the Federation. And so, as the Doctor says on several occasions during the episodes, that everybody has a role to play, and we all get an opportunity to grow. So, I think that's the most important thing for me in this episode.
That's a good one. I think
What
I'm
about
right
you?
along there with you. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm thinking the whole idea of respect and rank, plus the privileges that come with it, they are not given, they are earned. And our crew is learning the reality of that, where they have to climb up the rungs of the ladder, whereas last season, that wasn't really in the equation. And the reality of that is hitting in interesting ways for our crew. And, right at the very end, when we get that twist about the secret mission, that brings up some questions we'll have to bring up in our discussion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much for your answers, Marina. And then, as always, we are looking forward to what our younger fans have to say at the end of our next show. So for now, it's time for this episode's recap. Into the Breach, Part 1, written by Kevin and Dan Hageman and directed by Ben Ebon. Here we go. We are back, and it is time to catch up to what our crew has been doing since we last saw them. Murph is slaying security drills. Rock has found a way to prevent tribbles from multiplying. Just that, no big deal. Jankum is working on his social graces. Zero is observing the joys of corporeal touch. And Dal is skipping out on his studies, wishing instead he could go fast. They are all summoned by Admiral Janeway for a new mission that this crew is uniquely qualified for. Their days of prep school are over. Now it's time to study abroad. Admiral Janeway isn't there to pick them up, though. Instead, it's the EMH, a familiar presence to those who know about Voyager's journey home, but not to our crew, who could not care less about any of this long list of accomplishments as no ordinary hologram has. He escorts the Academy hopefuls to their new ship, Voyager! But it's Voyager-A. The original is now a museum. Their mission will take them to the wormhole that was created when they destroyed the protostar, where they will investigate a message received from Captain Chakotay 52 years in the future. It's a lot of timey-wimey, headache-inducing stuff that probably makes more sense once you've read Temporal Mechanics 101. The kids' welcome isn't exactly warm from Nova Squadron candidates and bridge crew alike, but the captain of this ship, Admiral Janeway, at least gives them a warm greeting on her way to the bridge. But enough about that for now. Let's get to know our new ship. She's Lamar class, 29 decks, and bigger than her predecessor. It carries a crew of 800, has 2 schools, and a warp core with slipstream, 16 holodecks, and cetacean ops. Yeah. This is all exciting for everybody but Dal, who is wondering when he will be called into action. The EMH tells him that everybody aboard the ship serves a purpose, and he will be called on when the need arises. In the meantime, he can keep himself company with a stack of books on the desk in his quarters. That is not exactly the command training he was hoping for. He tires of this regimen quickly and is already scheming a cockamamie plan to visit the bridge, but is shot down by his crewmates. Rock explains that their way to being heroes again is through the Academy, and that means taking their studies seriously. Dal takes comfort from a call with Gwen, who is on her way to Solemn. He confides that the reality of prepping for the Academy might not be his thing. She confides that she is nervous about the monumental task of setting foot on her home planet and convincing people she's never met to prevent a civil war and fulfill her father's dying wish. No pressure. They discuss the strange time paradox of how history won't change if Gwen succeeds in preventing a Vaunicott civil war, even though that means her father won't go back in time. If Gwen succeeds, she will create a new future. It's all in Temporal Mechanics 101. Dal, read it. Given their long-distance relationship, Dal asks about their future. Just when he's speaking openly about his feelings, their transmission is cut off. Cut to Zero, who is already underway with his medical training in sickbay. He expresses his awe at what a wonderful feeling it must be to touch and feel like corporeal beings do. That might not be possible for a Medusan, but the EMH assures him that it's always possible to become more than original programming. He would know. The EMH also knows a little more about Voyager's mission than he means to let on, but his acting subroutines, or maybe the lack thereof, clue Zero to the fact that something is happening in Shuttle Bay 3. I mean 2. Yes, 2. Zero knows that this will be of interest to Dal, who had a feeling Janeway was hiding something from them, and of course, he wants to investigate. Murph and Jankum are on board, but Rock is hesitant should they land into trouble. She stays behind. There is no Shuttle Bay 3, but there is a hangar with restricted access, aka Shuttle Bay 3. It doesn't look like much until the group discovers a cloaked ship. And hey, isn't cloaking technology illegal in Starfleet? They're interrupted by Janeway, the EMH, Commander Tyces, and Dr. Noom walking into the hangar. She just got the call from Admiral Jellicoe about their mission to go through the wormhole and rescue Chakotay. It's off. The wormhole is growing unstable, and Jellicoe does not want to lose any more officers when Starfleet is already stretched so thin with the Romulan evacuation. Tyces and Dr. Noom pledge to support Janeway, who are on board if she wants to proceed with the mission anyway. But she won't do that until the time is right, and if she cannot convince Starfleet to change its mind. In the meantime, she just wants that cloaked ship, the Infinity, ready to go, just in case. Dal, Murph, Jankum, and Zero see and hear it all. And this mission just got much more interesting. To be continued in part 2 next week.
Wow. That's quite an intro, right?
Lot happens in those 20-something minutes every week. Yeah.
That's something I find extraordinary that we managed to fit so much in terms of, the explanation and exploration and just mere, on average it's about 22, 23 minutes, right? Per episode, something like that.
Not a second wasted, that's for sure.
No, everything is happening. And I mean, there's a lot to unpack too, in those 22, like all the little details that pop up.
Yeah. How about we get into that with some of our observations? What were some things you noticed?
Well, first of all, I have to say, you have to give kudos to the creators. Prodigy keeps upholding the promise of being the introduction, the gateway into Star Trek universe. So, as the action unfolds, we still get little sort of like droplets of information for those people who are not necessarily, knowledgeable as far as where things are, how things are in the universe. So, with the, for example, with the, the tour of Voyager-A, we get an introduction to the major parts of a typical Starfleet ship. We see a little bit of engineering, and we introduce to the holodecks. My favorite is probably there's like when the Doctor gets a hold of them, there's all of a sudden you get this nice little scene where the Doctor explains what turbolifts are, how they work.
Yes.
And I'm like, great, it's like turbolift, it kind of makes sense, but here you go, you have an actual explanation for somebody who might not be in the know. And of course, at some point we hit the point where Jeffries tubes, these things go everywhere. So
Yes.
I love the fact that it's all just there. And speaking of the Doctor, I am so excited. I got to see the trailer when it was just introduced at New York Comic Con, and of course it's exciting. My goodness, we have the Doctor back. I mean, someone might question why did we pick the Doctor instead of, maybe Tom Paris show up or somebody else, but it actually makes perfect sense. They're already exposed to how an advanced hologram is. That wouldn't be a surprise. So it's perfect for Admiral Janeway to make the decision to have the Doctor become a mentor, or at least an overseer of what the crew is doing. So it's a great continuity to Voyager, of course. The fact the Doctor is being the Doctor. I'm a doctor, not a butler. We have this connections to our usual Doctor being the Doctor in other track productions. I'm a doctor, not a whatever. I do wonder, though, so we already have a chief medical officer as part of the main cast, if you will. So I do wonder how Dr. Noam would actually react to having another, former CMO and a holographic one to boot running around his sickbay. So
That's such a good
is that going to be a problem?
question.
I don't know. We will
Yeah.
see.
Are they going to clash a little
The sh
bit?
Yeah, the ship itself, again, I remember there was a lot of excitement when the Hagemans unveiled that it's going to be Voyager-A is going to be the main ship. The fact that it's Lamar class. So for those who are not aware, it's actually a tribute to a famous Hollywood actress who also happened to be a scientist and an inventor, Hedy Lamarr. So I think it's incredibly fitting that we have a new science vessel that is a tribute to a female scientist of the 20th century. Delightful thing. On a little bit of a downward thing, the sort of like as everything progressed, it suddenly hit me something. We see this little brief conversation between her and Dahl, between Gwyn and Dahl, and it sounds like what Gwyn was saying, that she's basically handling this mission by herself. Now we know that
Yeah.
everything happening is the same time span as the Romulan evacuation. Just how strapped is not the Federation, I suppose specifically Starfleet, that you have a very risky, potentially, I don't know, perilous pre-first contact even. Like it's not even like the actual first contact that happened already. Well, will happen. It's a
Yes.
timey-wimey stuff. It's very complicated. But
Timey. Yeah.
basically, you do not have, a staff of first contact specialists by the sound of it, that being in charge of this. It sounds like Gwyn is the mission. So I don't know. It's all it's a little bit worrisome. Like I had that moment of like, my God, did they literally just send Gwyn by herself? What's going to happen? Well,
That's a really great
so
observation.
yeah, so it's like it's all in the little things where you start to think about it. It's like, oh, there's a lot of happening stuff happening. So
Lot
what about
writing.
you? Your
So
observations?
I wish I would have been as observant as you were about Gwen's mission, just realizing that, you know what? Starfleet is apparently very strapped because if they're going to cancel the mission to retrieve Chakotay, I guess they can't spare anybody to come coach Gwen on some first contact protocols. She's just going to go do this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But that said, you know what? It's just so cool to see everybody again. It's great to catch up and see that our crew has been active since we last saw them, and they hadn't even necessarily been seeing each other. So while we're catching up with them, they're also catching up with each other, which I thought was really cool. And it was
Yeah.
a great reunion. Of course, sans Gwyn, but she is mentioned and just a hail away. So that, I don't know, that counts, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it totally does. Yeah.
So, yeah, and you know, as a Voyager fan, just what a great continuation this episode, this season, this show is for the Voyager story. I mean, what's better for us than getting on board Voyager-A with Admiral Janeway in command, the EMH there as a mentor to the crew. I love the way the kids blow off the EMH. Just they don't care about any of his grandiose claims. Like, I don't know, could you just take the luggage, please? It's such a kid thing. Like they don't know anything that he's done because that was a whole several years ago.
Yeah.
That's nothing to them.
You're
The
not
music,
Janeway.
right? Yeah, exactly. You're not Janeway, and that's all they care about, and that is the way it should be. I love the musical cue when both
Yeah.
yeah, we get the reveal like the shuttle sweeps in, lands, and you see NCC 74656-A landing. And then also when we approach Voyager-A, both of the time there's that really great drum cue. Boom, boom, boom. So reminiscent of the Voyager theme
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
Like, Nami, you nailed that so well. Oh, that was beautiful. It was so great. And how about a little bit of a rundown of Voyager-A and its cool features?
Mhm.
I did a little bit in the
Yeah.
recap, but I've got a couple more things. One is that the blue and gray color palette lives on in Voyager-A.
Mhm.
They didn't change too
Yep.
much. I gotta say, though, I think I like the old style command chairs a little better than the one on Voyager-A. Those chairs always looked really cozy on Voyager.
Well, Voyager seemed to have been unique in that regard. Like there was like it wasn't specifically a captain's chair; it was a command station. Whereas, I don't know. Maybe they're just trying to accentuate, the whole thing when you have that one central figure commanding. So
That might be.
it still looks cool, though. It still looks cool.
Sure. I mean, it's a captain's chair. Are you really going to say I don't like it? No, you're not. How
Especially if you get
about,
to sit in it.
well, right? Yeah. Dal would love to. How about that warp core with slipstream technology? Did that not look cool?
That was awesome. I can totally get like Jenkum was all like,
I was drooling,
oh,
definitely. It looks so pretty, and it even has like a similar kind of color scheme that Voyager's warp core had. I mean, it's different, but there's also reminiscent bits that are flowing through this whole thing, and it's so great. And then, of course, cetacean ops. Yeah, can't wait to learn more about that. That's going to be fantastic. Now, it's obvious that this episode, this season, this story is going to have lots of timey-wimey stuff if we're going to
yeah.
go find Chakotay. Janeway said way back in the Voyager episode Future's End that it gives her a headache. And,
Yeah.
sans the Doctor Who reference, it was true then and it's true now.
Absolutely.
And thank goodness we've got Dr. Aaron McDonald who's going to explain these things for us because, oh,
Future is the past is the future.
uh,
It
yeah.
all gives me a headache. Mm.
Yeah, we were just getting into it with the whole conversation between Dal and Gwen. Like, okay, is this going to restore time? Is this going to create new timelines? I mean, just, oh my gosh. I try really hard not to think too hard about these sorts of things. Just tell the story. I'll go with whatever you say. As long as it makes some sense.
Yeah, but the recent interview that the Hageman brothers did, it was sort of our friends from Track Movie, they said, like, do you feel that you painted yourselves in the corner with this? And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we're having a time travel season. Well, what are you going to do? But, we'll see how it all pans out because that's never an easy thing to do, both interestingly and logically. So,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of fun awaits.
And in a compelling and entertaining way.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, they made a tall order for themselves, but if anybody can do it, it's this team making this show. All right,
Absolutely.
so in the tradition of Mission Log, we dedicate a great deal of time to discuss some of the finer points of the episodes we reviewed to see what types of morals, meanings, messages we discover. How about we start with you, Marina? What did you find meaningful or memorable in this episode?
Well, the finding your place, first of all, because that's how the episode really starts. And anyone who's ever been in the situation of being a new kid in school would find this very relatable. It seems familiar. You should be able to work out what's what. Meanwhile, you're a white crow. You stick out. You don't really know where you're supposed to belong. So that certainly, I think, is like the main thing that starts out this particular episode and the season. So the crew is obviously they're not welcomed. Everybody
Yeah.
just kind of goes, civilians not allowed on the bridge.
Right?
So,
Yeah, they're kind of getting the
here we
cold
are.
shoulder. They're getting the cold shoulder from both the Nova Squadron candidates, so
Mhm.
kids, and then the adults who are on command staff. And this is not really a known thing for them yet. This is a situation where they are not in charge. They must take the orders, not come up with them themselves.
Yeah.
It's a massive paradigm shift. And you know what? This is very different from season one, and that's great. It gives it a whole different feel that things have changed and evolved. This group of kids, though, they have such a unique experience. This is why Janeway has them, is because they had such hands-on training on their own. And they know more about what sort of mission they are on than anybody else aboard this ship. They know everything that's come before, just like we do. Whereas the rest of the crew really might not know all of those things. And look, let's not forget, they saved Starfleet from complete destruction. Is there something to be said for that? Like, on one hand, I would say, well, look, the chain of command is the chain of command, especially in an organization like Starfleet. And our crew has already skipped some of those steps from the get-go just by the nature of what they've been through. And it makes sense that those who went through all those proper steps and waited their turn and did the right things might not regard our Academy hopefuls highly. But then On the other hand, Starfleet is the very best and the brightest among all of us. Many of the folks serving in Starfleet have done remarkable things. And so, does that make our crew that special? Does it make them stand out that much?
Yeah.
Seems like Admiral Janeway is the one who's there to stick up for them. And that might be about it.
Yeah, that's true. Well, incidentally, that kind of brings me to the point of I love seeing the fact that Janeway is still Janeway. She is always a very thoughtful commander. You look back at Voyager when she had her personal projects, Tom Paris and Seven of Nine, somebody
Yeah.
who's given a chance and a lot of times second chance to grow, to prove themselves, to better themselves. So it's kind of still there. I mean, she took them under her wing. Yes, she's not necessarily directly involved, as we can see. The Doctor is sort of like the immediate um I don't know, person in charge,
Supervisor?
I suppose. Yeah. But she's still there. She acknowledges them. She's the one who's given a chance. She's the one who thinks that, they're the ones who have those abilities and qualities that are needed in Starfleet. Generally speaking, I love the fact that we still have that Janeway engendering loyalty, which is something that she had throughout Voyager. And that little bit at the end when Commander Tices basically said, like, I'm 100. You want to go for this mission? We're going with you. And just generally, having her crews back. She's always about, the crew comes first. Let's not forget. In this case, we know that her mission is to save Chakotay, her best friend for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
And, never abandon a member of your crew. If you remember, she says that to Naomi in Voyager. It's one of the
She
three things the captain
does.
always does. So it's still there, and I'm glad to see that this is being so vividly represented in Prodigy. So we have kind of like, Janeway representing the Starfleet way of commander sticking for the, uh, all being all about their crew, and our little crew who self-organized, self-created themselves within season one, basically doing the same thing. They're still sticking together, they're supporting each other, and I'm sure we're going to see more of this in the upcoming episodes.
No
um
doubt.
the something else that I was thinking, between Janeway and Dal being, self-proclaimed captain, commander of his little crew,
Yes.
this juxtaposition, as you said, he's the one where he's like, he wants to go fast. He rushing into action. He needs to be doing something.
Mhm.
They got called into the mission. What's the mission? Are we going to be saving the galaxy again? Is it going to be something big, something important? And so they're sort of like also we see them at the beginning of this the transformation of how to learn, how to mature, how to learn patience, how not to be like rushing headlong into action, kind of juxtaposed with what Janeway is in the position of, like, she wants to do this mission, she wants to save Chakotay, and yet Starfleet is cutting back the ability to do so, and she can't just say, "Okay, I'm doing this anyway." She has to consider her crew, she has to consider the situation that the Federation finds itself in. So it's this interesting thing. On the micro level, we have the dealings with Dal and company, and then slightly bigger with Janeway, her considerations, whereas what else is going on around them. Again, this greater framework that we find ourselves in this season.
Yeah. Okay. These are all observations I had
Mhm.
as well. And I think one of the bigger themes that we're going to be discussing throughout this season
Mhm.
is the whole thing where the doctor says to Dal, we all have important roles to play
Mhm.
if the
Yeah.
need arises. Everybody's there for a purpose. Everybody brings in a special set of skills to the table. And you never know in the course of a mission who's going to be needed and when. You just need to be there if and when you're called. That's a really hard thing for Dal to
Yeah.
understand right now. And like you said, he loves to go fast. He's not really in it for the book learning. He is a very hands-on learner. I could not help but notice all of our other kids get a chance to do
Yeah.
hands-on training.
Mhm.
Rock gets to go feed the cetaceans mackerel, and Zero gets to go to sickbay. And so on. Dal is stuck in his quarters with pads and books, and is that just to give him the short shrift and a dose of reality? Like, it doesn't really seem fair.
Yeah, that was unusual because, like, yeah, he expected, he's like, am I going to be shadowing Janeway? That there's going to be something
Right.
extraordinary happening. And meanwhile, it's like, here you go, here are the pads, and you have to read about all these treaties, and
Yeah, like not even a holodeck program or something to keep him halfway interested for a little while.
yeah, yes,
Yeah, this could lead to trouble for him. He needs to feel useful and he's always thinking, what's really going on? What's going on? He knows something is up and figures out with Zero's help that, yeah, that really was something there. His instincts are dead on, and we're about to find out what all of that means. And that goes into what happens at the very end. We have a great role reversal from first season where it's Dal and crew like breaking Starfleet protocol either because they don't know it or because they had to do so to complete their mission. But now our crew gets to experience the frequent dilemma of whether or not starship captains follow orders or not. And we get this throughout all of Star Trek, where a lot of times captains will say, you know what? This is the time I break the rules. When is that okay? And when isn't it? The kids are being told you've got to respect the chain of command. And then here comes a situation where maybe not. Janeway will respect the chain of command, or she will respect it up to a point until she can't and has to go after Chakotay anyway. Like we see the dilemma at hand. Secrets stay secret only so long. It was only a matter of time before somebody figured it out. And look, I'm very curious and interested to see where it all goes and how this particular aspect of things in the story will play out, just because it is a completely different experience for our kids.
Yeah.
Love it.
I think it's going to be
I know
quite a ride.
so much. Yeah, so good. All right. So what did we learn from this episode? And are there any final discussion points you want to get out there?
Well, we know the game's afoot. The very last moment we understand that the overall mission is, we want to rescue Chakotay, who's stuck out there in both in place and in time, especially in time.
Yeah.
So we know that time travel is involved, and that's always a very complicated thing, as we already discussed. I think based on what little we managed to see and what a lot we managed to see in those 20 plus minutes that we had, I think we can sort of see which way the story is probably going to be evolving, because so far we have sort of like this, I think, three-way thing happening. We know that there's Gwyn's mission to save Solon. That's a big thing. Something she promised she will do for her father. No matter how nervous she is, that's her main purpose at the moment. As we already said, Admiral Jamie wants to save Chakotay. That certainly is a big thing, and that is something that is seemingly being hampered by Starfleet Command, unfortunately, given the circumstances the Federation found itself in. And then, of course, we have, on a slightly smaller scale, is, of course, our little ragtag crew who overhears the conversation of the senior officers and now is all curious and all about what's going to happen with this secret mission.
Right?
So
what are they going to do?
Yeah, so there's this several ways of like how we're going to keep track of all of this happening. Again, we know this little 22 little snippets, but it's coming. It's going to be quite a ride.
It's going to be much like our coverage of each episode, just one bite at a time.
Yeah.
Because so much does go into these episodes. And I think you really hit the nail on explaining why this episode does such a great job of setting the tone for what we can expect through the whole season. We've got our Academy hopefuls. They're experiencing the realities of Starfleet life and discipline, and that's working great for a lot of them, but not necessarily everybody. And so everybody's going to have a little bit of a different struggle this season, which is good and necessary. Dal's, I think, is going to be learning patience and readying himself for if and when he's called on to act. And he, of course, he's going to have his chance to shine, just like everybody is going to have their chance to shine. They always do. And it's just, it's just going to be fun to see what they all learn from the experiences they'll have throughout the season. We know it's going to be big and it's going to be grand. It's going to be so much fun to discuss going forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I cannot wait. So we've reached the end of the show. So thank you everyone for joining us here on the Mission Log Prodigy. If you enjoyed our show, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our Mission Log Prodigy playlist on Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, or find us on your podcast catcher of choice. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment Production and with technical direction by Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is missionlogpodcast.com. And if you'd like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/Mission Log.
Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to be with us. And we look forward to sharing our thoughts with you on Into the Breach Part 2, the second episode of the second season, next week, where we will hear what you have to say with your incoming transmissions. So, as a reminder, young cadets, please make sure you send them to us at missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com. We can't wait to hear from you. Live logs and proper.
Keep tracking.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.